Hello, Hassan.
Celia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I am just working on. Oh, you're in the dark.
Actually, you know what? I think it's showing up as dark because it's so bright behind me.
Uh-huh.
But it is actually,
Interesting.
yeah, it's really bright actually.
How interesting. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
are we ringing? Okay, so I'm gonna pause the record. Hi. Thanks for joining and making sure that we have some excellent content. So I'm really happy that we're going to be sharing that. Scott Resnick, are you going to show your face today?
I haven't decided. I'm actually home with a sick kid, so I'm just
Aw.
participating on mute.
Okay.
Um, but I will be listening in.
You know, I feel like Scott would be an excellent person also to have do some content on a call in the future. See, we're going to talk about you even though you're on mute. Um, we were just in Madison, Wisconsin for Startup Champions, and Katie was there too. How's your plumbing issue, Katie? Are you
Hi.
good? Hi. Are you resolved?
No, the plumbers just haven't shown up yet.
Okay.
So
All right. So as we were in Madison, Wisconsin, we were introduced to their space and their partnership with AmFam, and I think the American Family Insurance Organization would be a really great case study for us to learn about how that came on board and connected. So I feel like that would be a great topic for a future call. I'm just going to voluntold Scott Resnick to lead that.
That's what he gets for being on mute, right?
That's,
He can't
there you
respond.
go. I love that.
and
Hey,
Scott
Hassan,
and I are having lunch soon, so we can work on that together.
excellent. Hey, Kristen, I'm um, I'm designing a shirt for us, just so you know. We're going to send the message of venerageousness out into the world. I've been talking about it to everybody.
Oh my
Yeah. Sorry. So Kristen introduced me to a term. I think it was back at the Startup Champions Summit in Portland, and she said something about vulnerageousness or being vulnerageous, and I've kind of embraced the word and I'm running with it. So the universal support, we're going to have a universal support of the term vulnerageous, and I think that's a good intro question. So we'll give everyone another minute, and I want to welcome everybody, and then maybe talk about something new that you've embraced and are sharing out with the world. So think about that question as we get ready to rock and roll, and then we'll also have Kelly share her recent adventure. We're so very happy and proud, and we're like, okay, yes, this is happening. And I got to see the lovely Dia and have lunch with her last week. We explored a new restaurant in Oklahoma City and tried, like, we shared 5 different dishes, and there were 5 of us, so it wasn't like, we were gorging, but it was good, right? Okay, so we'll definitely have to do that again. All right, and we'll give everyone another minute, and let me, Hassan, do you want to put it looks like most of you are on the agenda. How wonderful. We're, and Hassan, I guess you and I will be note takers. And then you and Katie will facilitate the discussion after Kelly gives us her presentation. So
Sure. So Celia, I can take handwritten notes, but I'm using a Surface and my keyboard is not working, so I have to use the touch screen, and it's going
okay.
to be pretty slow to type.
Okay. Well, then I will type, and then you can edit me. How's that? So I'm going to put into the Slack channel the agenda, so that people can follow along at home. And if we spell your name wrong, then we apologize and we'll try to fix it afterwards. And I will rename it Mimi. And then if Katie has to step away because she's attending to maintenance issues, that would be fine. So, I think I know everybody on the call. For posterity and for the video, my name is Cecilia Wessinger, and I am the ESHIP community activator focused on the ecosystem building practitioners. That's all of you working in your custom and bespoke ways to make stuff happen. I'm going to try not to curse. Make stuff happen in your communities. So we're really excited to be on the Universal Support Call. We have our facilitators, our ESHIP champions, Katie, who's going to duck out for a second, and Hassan, who are going to help facilitate a call. Today, we will have Kelly Fitzgerald of the Launch Place share a little bit about her very recent experience and victory as they've worked together to collaborate and get some support for her community. In the meantime, I want to welcome everyone here. I think everyone is familiar with how we got here, but for those who may be watching the call afterwards, we know that in 2017, the Kauffman Foundation embarked on this discover, design, and deliver process of creating a field called ecosystem building. And one of the things that we've disseminated from countless conversations and thousands of sticky notes is that we need to get other people on board. So this goal 6, universal support, is about engaging and welcoming people who don't yet know that they're ecosystem builders to be part of a vibrant ecosystem. So I'm going to put just because we're going to celebrate the fact that Kristen introduced me to a new word. And so I'm going to model the question. So the question is, what is something that someone introduced you to? I'm trying to type and say this at the same. Somebody introduced you to an idea, a topic, a word, a frame of mind. So what is something that someone introduced you to that that now you are championing and sharing out into the world? Okay, introduced. I'm gonna fudge this up if I try to type it and say it at the same time. So I'll type it in a minute. So okay, so back in the spring, Kristen and I were having lunch at the Startup Champions Summit, and we were talking about vulnerability and the whole, Brene Brown thing, and trying to embrace being vulnerable so that it made you feel strong and empowered. And so she introduced me to this word, vulnerageous. And so I loved it, and I've shared it with other people, and now people like Shelley Bell are hashtagging it, and I said my cousin is actually helping me design a shirt, so I'll have to send it to you, and then we're going to send it to Brene Brown. I should probably trademark before we send it to Brene Brown, because it'll have that Oprah effect, right? So we're going to send this out into the world to be courageous in your vulnerability. And now I've taken away your thing, so I'm going to tag you, Kristen, and we'll popcorn around and share it with us, something that you've embraced because somebody else introduced it to you. Kristen?
Well, I can't take credit for vulnerageous because someone introduced it to me, so I will pass credit to Lauren Burke, who works a lot with Echoing Green. If you know that organization, it's social entrepreneurs, young social entrepreneurs. And so I've been borrowing it from her and introducing it around to everyone. But yeah, I think I'm still really working on that one. I've had to live it a lot in the last month. So I'm going to I'm sticking with that. Even though Lauren introduced it to me, I'm working really hard to put it out there for people who need it. And that's a lot, I'm finding.
Go ahead and pick somebody.
Oh, iTag. Okay. Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Man, this one's a tough one. I guess I would say that the word cultivate for me, just for working on projects, oftentimes we get so bogged down into the details and trying to get through your to-do list that you stop and don't take time to cultivate like you should. If you think about gardening and how you must cultivate and tend to things and make sure it's more attention and focus and reflection versus just trying to get everything done. So focus on cultivating. And then I'll tag Dia.
I'm Dia. I'm with Ada Jobs Foundation in Ada, Oklahoma. Let's see, almost 2 years back, I was attending the big Omaha conference in Omaha, and my friend Carlos, who was at that time really involved with the ESHIP goals, and he introduced me to entrepreneurial ecosystem building, which of course I had been doing, but just a specific term and understanding better what it is, and I've tried my best to advocate it ever since. I will tag Hassan.
I don't think I have anything new. I think I was reintroduced about a week and a half ago to trust. And what I mean by that is that sometimes I guess through the course of work, day to day, everything can become really transactional. And I had somebody reach out to me who I had not had contact with in about 12 years to work on a project. And he reached out to me based on our relationship and interaction 12 years ago. So it just kind of registered for me just how important trust is in any relationship. And that's, I guess, just because my work can tend to be very transactional from day to day, but just kind of reminded me of how important building trust is. And, you know, I hadn't talked to this guy in about 12 years, but I think the interaction that we had 12 years ago lasted to this day. So that's what I have. I will popcorn over to Kelly.
Do I go again?
No, she already went.
Yes. So, Amy?
Hi, I maybe I'm the newest to this group, so let me just start with gratitude for including me in and letting me just show up. Something that I think about a lot when I'm designing programs is an idea that came to me by two different artists, the dance artist and a visual artist in about the same time period. And it's this idea of structured improvisation. So this is kind of like a modern dance and maybe even a description of some ways that artists work. I was introduced to this by Daniel Burkholder, who's a dance artist and instructor. And one of his primary forms of dance is this very weird, unusual kind of technique called contact improvisation, which is, anyway, that's for probably another story, but it's modern and it's connective and it tends to be partner dance and it's very much responsive to the other partner. Anyway, so one of the ways that you set up a dance thing is in improvisational dance, you set a structure. And so the dancers know 4 dancers come in staggered, from 2 different sides. You set some structure that says what the dance is, but you don't tell them what to do within it. This is also a jazz improvisation kind of thing, right? And then I was really struck by the creativity that you could have within the structure, but that you needed both. You needed the improvisation and the structure at the same time, and then there's balance. And this idea of balancing the kind of left brain and right brain in visual art came to me from an art teacher named Patricia Zanni, and her big idea was cover the white, which could have other implications, but like cover the canvas, and then we'll work on setting a structure within it. So in either case, whether you set a structure and improvise within it, or you improvise and then begin to lay a structure on top of it so that it's readable, there's something human about needing both the architecture and also the creativity that goes within it. And anyway, this is just an idea that I bring to a lot of program design and other work. So I'm not sure it's super philosophical, but it seems to have a lot of resonance anyway.
Works for me.
So I will tag, I'll tag Chad.
Great, thanks, Amy. Apologies for the darkness and the attire. It's a bit earlier. It's 3:15 over here in Australia. We're focused a bit on ecosystem building, particularly in regional areas. And great words, great ideas that you guys have shared so far, and great questions, Cecilia. The concept that I've been sharing around quite a bit is one I came across of collective impact and backbone organizations. And one of the things I've really been inspired about is a place where we're doing that over in a place called Ganawindi, population of about 6,000, high agriculture, high diversity. And the local ecosystem leader there, we've been working with Julia, really embodies this notion of kind of an outsourced economic development body to drive innovation and entrepreneurial activity in the region, in the way that community is structuring that as a legitimate outsourced economic body for that specific function in that region, using the collective impact framework has been really inspiring to see what she's been doing there. Scott, I'm not sure if you're online, but I'll throw it to you just in case. If you can, great. Otherwise, we'll pause for 2 seconds if you're still on mute. And I think that's about everybody.
No, I am here. However, if a crying child comes in the background, you'll go back on mute. One piece is just a general philosophy of, I don't know how to necessarily articulate it, but to focus on on doing good work yourself. So often I feel like this happens in ecosystem building space, but in many areas of community organizing, we try to tackle what someone else is doing, or another organization, or another's objective, whether that be in the government sector, the ED sector, and we would want them to focus on something differently, primarily around entrepreneurship, and essentially keeping the blinders on to just say you're going to focus on your own work and make sure that is rewarding and impactful work, and that it will work out in the long run. Reminding others of that, particularly in small ecosystems, has been just some strong advice that one mentor passed down to me, and that now I'm passing down to others.
Okay, and I think Katie is left.
Great. Excuse me. So I'm going to be a little bit more concrete. So I've been in this accelerator program for the past week in Chicago last week, and it's lasting a couple more months, and it's around social impact ventures. For us, it's around the sewn garments trade, and we're doing a lot of ecosystem building work within that space. And I learned about this amazing, at the accelerator, I learned about this amazing group called LEAP Fund, which I think is really relevant to a lot of our work in building stronger, more economically mobile communities. So what LEAP Fund does is they help people who are on public benefits stay on their public benefits even as they take raises. So a lot of people on like SNAP or childcare subsidies lose that if they reach a certain threshold of income, but they can't, they still don't make enough to pay for what it actually costs for their food or for their childcare. And so they end up declining their promotions and declining these raises and putting themselves like in a continually bad position. But what LEAP Fund does is that they work with employers to help them get over what's called the benefits cliff. So they'll like defer some of their raises until they can get more financially on their feet and get over that cliff before they take themselves off those public benefits. And I just think that like, just their approach is really innovative. And I don't think a lot of people pay a lot of attention to this problem. So I think it's just like this really, really innovative approach. So just wanted to put it out there and see if they can they're always looking for employers who want to like help their employees, particularly those who maybe don't have the best benefits for their employees already. So that's what I learned and am advocating for these days.
Excellent. So I think I'm going to toss it to Katie to introduce Kelly. And then for the next 10, 15 minutes, we're going to have Kelly talk about what they've gone through recently and offer an opportunity for everyone to ask questions. It might be really good to have you put questions into chat just so as they come up so we don't lose it. And then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds good. And I'm going to do a highly mediocre job of introducing Kelly. So you can fill in the gaps, Celia, and Kelly, please do so as well. One thing, Celia, if I missed this when I was dealing with my plumbing emergency, were we going to do the updates for Goal 6 after?
Yeah, we're going to do updates at the end.
No problem. Okay, so Kelly is with a place in Danville, Virginia called The Launch Place. And for the past, I don't know, what'd you say, 7 years, Kelly, since 2012, right? You've been doing a lot of work around ecosystem building and entrepreneurship in the Danville community. And I think, Kelly, you've received a couple of grants, or maybe just one grant a long time ago to do this work, and you just won another one. And this time it was really to be that backbone supporting role of ecosystem building over the next 3 years. And so in addition, and what I really like about this from what I know about it, is that in addition to being that facilitator role of building the entrepreneurial ecosystem, there's also a really high level of focus on inclusion and equity, which I think is really exciting. Not only that a foundation, a community-based foundation, is focusing on inclusion, I think that's becoming more and more prevalent, but that they're coupling it with entrepreneurial ecosystem building and really see the overlap and the value of a role like the Launch Place. So, and what I also think is really cool is that it's a pretty small community. It's like about 40,000 population in the city and 120 in the MSA. And I think that's such a forward-thinking community foundation for such a small community, and also a great size to pilot it. You know, it feels like more manageable to me than maybe a New York or even like a Madison where I'm from. So correct anything I said wrong. And thank you so much, Kelly, for taking your time to tell us about it.
Yes, sure, absolutely. Thank you, Katie, for that introduction. You pretty much had it summarized correctly. We've been working on this initiative for a number of years. Not only did it start probably 7 to 8 years ago with the local community, we had a chamber executive director that was really spearheading the economic development and entrepreneurship track for the region. And she was the one that was really pulling us all together, the different entrepreneurial support organizations. She served on our board of directors when we were initially forming the Launch Place. And she was our key person. And then I guess maybe 3 years ago, we lost her to breast cancer. And so we lost that champion in the community. And so when you lose that champion, things kind of lose that traction that you had going forward. And we'll step back a little bit to give you a little bit more information about the Launch Place. The Launch Place was founded in 2012. Prior to that, we provided business consulting for about 10 to 15 years in a small community for small to medium-sized businesses. It was extremely helpful for the community back in 2008 when a lot of the smaller manufacturers were needing some consulting services, but they couldn't afford to go out and have those $20,000 contracts for services. And so we were able to fill a gap, or we were able to subsidize those fees with some grants as being a nonprofit. Well, fast forward to 2012, we saw a need where we were creating a lot of business plans, but there was a lack of capital in the community for these companies. So we got together with the foundation, and the foundation that supports us is called the Danville Regional Foundation. They are a $250 million foundation that was created from the sale of the local hospital here. The local leadership decided at that time what to do with those dollars, and they decided to create a foundation. That foundation has been phenomenal for our community. They have a focus on health, education, economic development, and many other of those key aspects that a community needs. They support a number of those initiatives. And for us, the economic development piece was how can we provide capital to our region and really spur economic development more diverse than the big 500 job employers coming in. So how can we really attract those technology entrepreneurs to a smaller rural region? So we came up with a model. We traveled across the nation trying to figure out what could work in our community. And so we cherry picked from the different models, and what we landed on where we created 2 funds. So we have a pre-seed fund. So we'll invest anywhere from $25,000 up to $250,000 into companies. And it's a dual bottom line. So we're looking for the companies to, number one, have a return on investment, but also to create economic impact in our region. So that oftentimes equates to jobs. So we're looking for them to create, if we invest $250,000, we're looking for them to create 5 jobs as they grow and scale up over the next 3 years. So we're not expecting companies to completely pick up their roots and move. It's as they're growing and scaling their operations to put a piece of that in our region that makes sense. We want them to have roots here because we don't want them to pick up and leave in the 3 years time frame either. We've invested in 16 companies so far. Our largest company that has expanded is going to create 70 to 100 jobs. So that was a huge win for us. We've had an exit, so that validates our investing structure. And now, so we have the launch place that's been a player in the community for a number of years. And also we have the community college that's located here. They provide different entrepreneurial support services. We have from the SBA, the Small Business Development Center, we have that. And we also have a River District Association, which is a Main Street type of organization here. We all have so many different things going on. However, we're not coordinated. And unfortunately, we've been trying to meet, and we've met kind of ad hoc basis and not had a lot of structure around those meetings and how we can be more intentional about our meetings. And also when we sat around the table and we were thinking about writing a grant to support the actual ecosystem building piece, we realized we were not measuring the inclusion piece. So the women and people of color, we did not have any metrics around. We knew that we were helping everyone, but we were not focused and intentional about those efforts. And from that, so we identified the gap of needing more structure with our ecosystem and also being more inclusive, but also our youth entrepreneurship track. That was another grant that supported in the K-12 system a youth entrepreneurship program that went away due to the lack of grant funding. So we decided we needed to bring that back. We needed to keep that spark in the K-12 system for the students. And then also for the launch place, our entrepreneurs, we could see that they were it's a different stress factor in a mental health capacity for an entrepreneur when they feel isolated. When everything's on their shoulders for the operations of the business, it's a different type of, mental space for an entrepreneur. And we were having a lot more conversations that were not related to business per se, but overall general health of the entrepreneur. And if you look at the statistics, entrepreneurs have a very high suicide rate. And we see that there's a problem, but there's a lot of best practices, not a lot of case studies to really see what type of programs can really help entrepreneurs that are feeling stress and isolation. So that's another piece that we were like, okay, these are what we need, so let's go after a grant. And we were fortunate enough, we went to the Danville Regional Foundation, that same foundation, and they awarded us a $711,000 grant to support those initiatives over the next 3 years. And so I'm going to stop there. I know I've said a lot. And I do see there's a question about a specific kind of company we're looking to invest in. We do look for companies that can scale up and eventually have an exit. So oftentimes that's not, I know that people hate the term Main Street businesses, but in essence, we do not invest in Main Street businesses because oftentimes they're going to scale slowly sometimes, and it's just a year-over-year growth, and they're looking to maintain it. They're not looking for that exit event. Whereas we're a fund, so we're looking for that exit event so we can reinvest in future companies because it's an evergreen fund. And so we need that to occur. So it's more of enterprises that can be scaled up is what we're looking to invest in. And the second fund that we received is to continue doing the work that we're doing now. And that is, in 2012, we received a $10 million grant. So we have some money for the seed fund, and then also we have operational dollars. And then in this past July of 2018, we received an $11 million to continue to invest in companies and also support the operations. And the two funds that we operate, the pre-seed fund, are for companies that are very early stage. So either they have a prototype and they need to get that prototype into the market, into the hands of the consumers. We have that so that they can either, if it's a manufacturer, an IoT type of device, they can batch print, have those, get that feedback from the customer. Really, it's all about market validation at that level. And we'll invest anywhere from $20,000 to $75,000 in that level. And then for our seed fund, we'll invest up to $250,000 initially and can go up to $500,000 as our max. But that's for companies that are a lot further along, that are looking to have a real impact in our region. Yes, the regional foundation was the source of our grants for the launch place and also for the ecosystem at large. And the ecosystem is 5 different entities that co-apply together. And so it's the community college, the River District Association, the Small Business Development Center, and then ourselves and the Chamber of Commerce.
I think there's another question too from Chad. Are you using frameworks such as collective impact, and do you see yourself as a backbone organization, and what is the governance structure?
We're going to give the person that we hire flexibility in terms of the framework to use. However, the governance of the structure will be those 5 entities that co-apply. There will be an advisory board. So in essence, that person will report to the advisory board, and that's who will direct her work. The day-to-day accounting, we are going to be the fiscal agent for the grant. And so that'll be more of a transactional relationship with us, but in terms of overall vision, activities the person will be working on, that will come from that advisory board. The biggest challenge in getting everyone to the table. I would say our biggest challenge over the last few years is we kept bringing in consultant after consultant after consultant, where they were able to look and provide like a map and identify gaps and things like that. But ultimately, when it comes down to boots on the ground, we felt like we need more local. We need a person that's going to wake up every day thinking about how can they improve the ecosystem. And so I think our biggest challenge was to finally pick up the baton and say, yes, we're going to take this forward. We're going to lead this initiative, versus getting all those consultants in and telling us what we should do, when in essence, we really know what we need to do here locally. Okay. So the one question from Amy is, does the foundation have an investment side into our companies? No, they do not currently. There has been some conversations in terms of if there was another fund set up, that if they were to have some dollars invested in that, it would be just an investment vehicle. It would not be for a grant. So we've had conversations around that, but we have not implemented that at all. Did that answer your question, Amy? And some metrics, I'm happy to share the metrics of the grant. We have, let me find that page. One piece that was successful in the community from community business launch, it's a state, Virginia has a community business launch program for Main Street businesses to have a pitch competition. It's a boot camp where it's a programmatic piece, but then also there's some prize money associated at the end. And we had a very strong turnout for that. strong interest for that. However, it was restricted to the River District Association, like the River District. So that didn't account for the larger county at large, as well as Caswell County, North Carolina. And so one piece that we're bringing on is to continue that program, because that was a 1 year only grant and they would not continue that. That's what they do across the state, just for 1 year. And so we're looking to bring that back. And so one of the metrics would be how many companies are pitching in that competition at the end. We are looking at having, of course, more boot camps and the attendance of that boot camps. Also to make sure that 50% of the entrepreneurs that are served are women and minority entrepreneurs. We're looking to have a lot of different networking events so the entrepreneurs can collaborate and meet each other, because that's one thing that we found in our discovery process is our small business owners do not identify with the word entrepreneur. And so trying to frame that narrative and have a marketing campaign and say, highlight the different business owners and say, yes, you are an entrepreneur, even though you're not what mass media has portrayed, like Facebook, you are still an entrepreneur, you are a business owner. We also have in our youth entrepreneurship, how many students participate. I mean, just your typical metrics around that. Did I answer that question? A case study or a white paper write-up. Can you tell me more what you're thinking behind that, Kristen?
Anything that you writes down, for instance, the collaborative that you co-apply your 5 entities, just a list of sort of who you're partnered with, the decision that you made that you described to hire an ecosystem builder, that, you know, and maybe a little bit about these that kind of the stack of activities that you're working on, that, you know, all this measurements and all that support, that larger vision of like, we're all together and doing this because here's how we chose to structure it. Here's the funding we received and from who, because I am arguing tomorrow for something very similar and our community doesn't know what this is. So even if they were able to be like, oh, look at what's happening in Virginia, that might help. These are concrete dudes that I'm talking to tomorrow. So any example or anything that you have written that you could email me would be like, I can plop it on their desk after the meeting. That'd be great.
Okay, I can send you a summary that will help. And also, if you want to have them reach out and call us directly, we're happy to have that conversation with them and tell them, you know, this is what we're doing here. Because sometimes being able to answer questions versus reading a report might give them more insight and make it feel more real than versus reading something on a piece of paper. Awesome. So we're happy to field those conversations too. We do that quite often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Hassan had an interesting question about mental health in your organization and the health for entrepreneurs.
How we're going to approach that in particular, we're looking at partnering with another venture firm that invests in companies called Venture South. They are also experiencing stress and isolation with their entrepreneurs. And I don't know the particular structure that we're going to approach first, but I know that they already have some things in mind, and they've been working with our president and CEO, Ava Doss. And I know she'll have more concrete examples of what we're going to do, but we're going to first start out small with small groups of entrepreneurs. And also, I came from the healthcare industry. And in particular, in healthcare, resilience is also often measured for healthcare workers, because what they experience day to day, I mean, literally it's life and death situations. And how do you stay resilient? And how are you able to cope with that and still be able to be at your best? I think some of those principles and different methods of resiliency could play and could possibly help, but that's just a theory at this point. And so Duke University, which is real close to us, about an hour away, they have a lot of research in that area. And so I was going to reach out to them and see if there's some possibilities where we can apply what they've been doing to entrepreneurs. Does that answer your question, Hassan?
Okay. And what's Dia's question about chamber and EDA in the same community?
Yes, the chamber serves the city of Danville and then the Pennsylvania County surrounding the city in Virginia. There's also another chamber that's in Caswell County, North Carolina, that we haven't been quite as engaged with. We would like to be. However, if we can get 80% on the bus, let's go ahead and go versus holding up and waiting for everyone to come on board. And so that's what we're doing right now for some of those other organizations. And we do have a website that was created from the consultant stage. However, it hasn't been formally launched. And that's one thing that once we hire the coordinator, we're going to let them direct that launch and have more of that campaign about this is what an entrepreneur looks like, and really bringing the word of entrepreneurism to the forefront in the community. But I can go ahead and share it with you because it's live. So I can do that. What other questions?
I feel it's really interesting when you were mentioning about the definition of entrepreneur not being the same. I think that that's something that we're trying to tackle in goal 3 about a common set of a common lexicon. So I'm curious to hear from everybody else. But when Main Street businesses versus high scale, scale up businesses and high tech, high growth, and I mean, Katie's in that space where you talk about manufacturing. So Katie, when you talk about manufacturing and entrepreneurship, like how does that conversation usually go? And I know Dia struggles with that in talking about economic development, and then entrepreneurship is part of it. And I know being at ESHIP and listening to Dell talk about it's the evolution, but then not everybody feels that way. So I'm curious to hear, especially from the two of you, on how you approach those conversations. And
yeah. Well, I think when, Kelly, what really resonated for me when you were talking and when I'm thinking about my own work is we're actually doing a project right now called Pathways to Patient Capital, which is helping manufacturers and makers, particularly of color, accessing the kinds of capital that they need to scale their business. So that could either be a startup company looking for 5 to 10, or something that we've identified in our research and call the missing middle. Which is, between $25,000 and say $200,000 to $250,000. So right in that amount that you're talking about with your fund, Kelly, that like an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily have the credit score to get a traditional bank loan. They don't think they want to go that route, or they don't have friends and family to even start thinking of that as an option. And so instead they just they don't do anything, and their business kind of stagnates and doesn't grow. And that's like lost economic opportunity for a lot of communities. And so we're trying to look at different partnerships and different examples of organizations that are taking the lead in developing these kinds of tools, like not necessarily investments. Like I don't think manufacturers, a lot of them are not going to be the ones who want to exit their company. And so that's why I was kind of probing on that end, because, these are companies that maybe might be more interested in like revenue-based investing. So as they become profitable, they feed that money back into the fund, back to the investors, but are able to maintain equity and maintain ownership of their business. And so that's, Celia, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's a really important gap that you're filling. And I love the fact that it's not a traditional bank that's doing the lending, and that these tools are a little bit more flexible. So I was thinking I might have to ping you offline and ask you more about that anyway. So that's just some reflections from my perspective.
Let's see. We are definitely struggling with the translation for the language with economic development, how people have seen it. It's like people do realize that entrepreneurship is important, and we've started a pitch competition and a boot camp, and the participation and interest in that has definitely helped kind of spread the message across. But right now we are going through kind of like a strategic like we're going to get ready to do a next 5-year strategic plan, and a big part of that will be messaging how, as an economic development organization, first of all, it's okay for us to take a lead on entrepreneurship development in the community, and also define those metrics. I know Celia was there at a regional entrepreneurship meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed like the state is taking it seriously, but there's just still that gap of entrepreneurial ecosystem building. It's almost as if a lot of people don't know the playbook and the things that we are working on day to day. But I think that would be a good opportunity to introduce it to them. But if anybody's seeing any better best practices across the nation when it comes to translating between that EDA, government, and entrepreneurship, we are still searching and trying to figure that out.
One thing that we did with we call it Dream Launch competition, that Main Street competition, the city of Danville actually provided the prizes and the incentives to the companies. So that was one way that we were able to collaborate with them, is for them to have a piece in the game, and where they provided those incentives directly, and we didn't have any incentives that we provided. And that's what we're going to do going forward too, is look for those economic development entities to provide those incentives, the prizes.
Yeah, we have been looking at that as well. Like, we recently are trying to get past an incentive for business retention and expansion. So before, we just had incentives for bringing companies in and number of jobs, but now that seems like if existing company needs help with infrastructure or program development, to have a scope and incentive for that as well.
So a couple of the takeaways I'm hearing from Kelly's thing, which really resonated with me, is trying to get around the everybody being involved kind of thing, is not waiting for everyone to get on the bus. I think we have a lot of analysis paralysis that comes along with who should be at the table, how do we do this, and then we don't actually execute, which is what we tell our entrepreneurs all the time, right? We just need to start, and then you'll figure it out and build the path along the way. And so not waiting for everyone to get on the bus, but getting as many people on the bus as possible. I really like the idea of getting economic development people and other people to have kind of skin in the game and involvement in whatever small way, makes them feel like they have a vested interest. And so their voice and their contributions are at the table. I feel like a lot of the time I hear from all of you, oh yeah, we just need you to advocate, but we don't need you to contribute anything, and I think people, when they contribute a little something, feel like they're involved in the process, which we don't usually do. So so it's an interesting thing for me. What are your big takeaways? So maybe we can jot those down.
One of the things that really struck me, a couple of things. One is on the business scale. You're absolutely right, and we frame a lot of that around, you have your survival businesses, the day-to-day, the lifestyle businesses, the managed growth, and the high growth potential, and really segmenting those out as different aspects of the economic development portfolio. But then also, as was mentioned, integrating that community development piece with a lot of the different community groups: youth, indigenous, people of color, females, aged. The other thing that really struck me was the time in the game. And Kelly, be interested in your take on the social capital you'd built in that community from 2008. A lot of times people look at these things and you can't, bringing the outside in and saying, here's a framework, why don't you do this? But you actually had that social capital, I would imagine, from doing it, figuring out what worked, failing a whole bunch of times, building the relationships, and then 2012 start kicking it off. That's like a huge journey, and that's one of the things I often take from you, from the stuff that Fell did in Boulder. Like, you wrote the book in 2012 based on doing a heck of a lot of the work 5 to 8 years prior. People pick it up and say, how come this isn't working after 6 months of trying to give it a go? So be interested in your kind of what that social capital played and actually getting some of the outcomes that you achieved.
social capital was huge, especially when we were setting up the investment funds. The Angel Capital Association, they were integral for our success getting it set up and understanding the investment world and the investment landscape. Also, the SSTI Science, the State and Science Technical Institute, I forget what the acronym stands for, but we were able to meet a number of people from those different organizations that we would share what we were working on, and they would give us insights similar to what we're doing here today and what's working for them, and then we would cherry pick and apply those to see what would work. Also, we're located next to Raleigh, North Carolina. There's a lot of entrepreneurial activity happening with 3 major universities. You've got Duke, Carolina, NC State, and they've been very integral to be able to watch what's happening there, so much so that we have a satellite office in the Research Triangle Park of North Carolina. And so building those relationships and building those networks was essential for us to continue the work that we've been doing. So yes, definitely, Chad. We have to keep working on that too.
Kelly, I just have a quick question, because we always talk about building out ecosystem building as an actual field. In your proposal and in putting this together, did you actually call that position when you pitched this whole concept? Were you referring to it as ecosystem builder, or you were?
The job title is ecosystem coordinator. Well, entrepreneurial ecosystem coordinator is the job title. And so yes, it was throughout the grant proposal, the words ecosystem.
The other thing I like in what you just said there, Kelly, is where you're collaborating with some of the larger entities. Quite often a smaller population town can feel like they're competing with the larger entities that are taking a lot of the entrepreneurial support, but you've chosen to collaborate. In the work that you did, and I often ask the question as far as who's sucking the oxygen out of the room within this. If there's a single entity that stops other people from participating, stops the stuff in the rainforest from growing because there's so much cover already happening. Was there anything there already that was doing that, sucking the oxygen out of the room of consuming everything, which made it difficult to grow? Or was there a void which allowed you to actually flourish and do something good?
I wouldn't say that there was a lot of like major, I guess, the squeaky wheels. There weren't a lot of squeaky wheels that were kind of taking everything. I would say that we were just too siloed in what we were doing, where we were doing a lot of good things individually, but when you put the focus on the entrepreneur as a whole, and how do we create structures so that our programs are piggybacking off each other versus the Small Business Development Center, they have the Starting Your Own Business workshop once a quarter, and they have X number of entrepreneurs come in. And then that happens. There's no one to follow that entrepreneur through their journey, because eventually they're going to outgrow the needs of the Small Business Development Center. And so how can we that's the purpose of this position. It's that coordinator that can come in and follow that entrepreneur on their journey, or it's a successful entrepreneur that needs to scale up, or they need to be connected with different suppliers, or they need to be connected with launching a new product line. And so that's just a mini piece of starting your own business, doing expansions like that. And so how can they, as an entrepreneur, not get bogged down in the details of what each entity is doing? They just need to do. We need a person that has that knowledge and connects them to where they need to go, and not waste so much time with the entrepreneur just calling all of us individually.
Yeah, and I think Kristen was spot on. That description would be very helpful for Goal 7 work. So if you can share that description, that would be great. And I love this discussion, so thank you all for that. And are there any other key takeaways that anyone else had that we can kind of throw into here? And please feel free to edit the agenda document, because I feel like Hassan and I are writing as fast as we can, but that doesn't always work.
Just a question about that. Since I'm a little newer to these, I jumped in after the first one. I'm looking on the Slack channel, but I didn't see the agenda posted there. Am I in the wrong Slack community?
So there should be in the Goal 6 Slack channel, pinned to the top, should be the agenda. And it's a running agenda, so we kind of push everything down. and then there's a link to it on the dashboard. And then as soon as this call is over, what I'll do is post this video to the dashboard. So for people who missed it or have missed calls in the past, they can go back and watch. So that's a great question, because logistically, I think that sometimes, you come along or people have been at it for a while and then we shifted. So this is a new iteration of the goal calls. And what we're trying to do is we want to give you some valuable content so that it's not necessarily just focused on what are you doing for the sake of the ESHIP goals and whatnot. And so, I mean, really highlighting things like Kelly's efforts and because I volunteered Scott that we would love to hear how an organization like American Family got engaged in doing the work of ecosystem building and entrepreneurship alongside. I think there's great things to be learned from what Katie does around manufacturing, and so if you have any people that you think would be great content people to talk about case studies or what they've done, kind of like what Kelly did today, to share their experience so that you can ask those questions and we can gain best practices. So these monthly meetup calls are basically so that we can learn from each other. And then I want to be mindful of everyone's time and give anyone who's working on a project update or some kind of updates that you're able to share. So if you're working on a project around Goal 6 initiatives and would like to share, the idea of sharing your updates is basically more about visibility and alignment as we foster this community, so that we're not working in silos, like some of the things that Kelly just shared with us, experiencing in the communities. The more visibility and alignment that we have, the more we can work in tandem. Sometimes that means that you see what somebody else is doing and then you pivot and do something else because you understand that market gap is being addressed. These project canvases and project teams are building towards the solution of trying to create a professional field of ecosystem building. And those of you ecosystem builders who are now creating unique roles and the things that you're doing in your own communities to bring this effort forward. So we're hoping to share that. Does anybody have any project canvases or yes?
I do. Real quick. So I wanted to give an update on 6.2, which is, you'd think I'd know this by heart, but I really don't. Which is, the global awareness campaigns, of course. So I'm working with Beth Zimmer and Jeff and Tyler and a couple other champions, and we'd be excited to have anyone else join us as well. We're working to find case studies in different cities or regions or places that have a good sort of campaign story where an organization like a city government or something like the Launch Place worked to promote the concept of entrepreneurial ecosystem building. So whether it was through traditional means like social media and billboards and that kind of thing, or if it was more like a social capital campaign, we want to understand different examples of where that was successful. The reason that we're doing that is we want to build a toolkit or a playbook where communities could take and use that in their own place. And we're hoping to partner with an NRP, a national resource provider, on that. But the first things first is try to get some case studies, just like someone asked Kelly about her case study today. So if anyone has any ideas, that's what we're looking for. And I think I actually need to go downstairs with the emergency, so I'll be back.
Is anyone else working on anything? I know Beth is working on some things, but she couldn't be on the call today. If you have a project yes, Amy.
I'm new, so maybe I hope this fits. And if it doesn't fit, maybe it'll be interesting. We've got a couple of things going on, and it relates to 6.5, but it's not directly involved in that. But this has to do with our Foundation Circle program is coming up. It's a cohort program of local and regional foundation folks. It will start next year, but recruitment is starting. Why should you care? Because I think this may be interesting to you. The folks that we're working with in that cohort are from the investment side of local and regional foundations, some health conversion foundations sometimes, and could be private foundations with some kind of local roots. And the idea is to help them work together to figure out how they can move their own institutions to investing at least some of that corpus into place-based projects and economic development, which, some of those, of course, could be businesses or real estate investments or something that would be local and entrepreneurial. So if you've got anybody who might be interested in that, or if that's of interest to you, feel free to let me know. We also have a couple of, we have if anybody's in the Bay Area, there's this kind of alt SOCAP event that's happening in Oakland and San Francisco called COCAP. If you're interested in that and roughly in the Bay Area, October 20th through 22nd. And if you're interested in that, let me know. That may or may not be a real fit for folks, but at least one of the sessions is called Equitable Food and Farm Financing, which there may be somebody on this call who's interested in that. And then the last thing I would say is we've got a meeting coming up that we're doing with Self-Help Credit Union and Wallace Center on this same topic, equitable food and farm financing. So, trying to get through the barriers of not enough Black and brown business owners are getting money, whether they're small projects or larger projects, the whole spectrum. So we're trying to tackle that in a day and a half with quite an interesting group of people. We might have a couple seats if somebody's really, jazzed to get to Little Rock early November. Let me know and maybe I can pull a few strings. But that's a topic that's up for us, and anybody who feels interested in that particular set of entrepreneurs or that sort of those kinds of integrated capital stacks and foundation and CDFI kinds of combos that can fund this kind of work. I'm open to any suggestion, input, feedback, whatever on that. So just reach out to me.
Amy, can I invite you to put something either in Slack or if you wanted to, that would be great, because I think that that's an opportunity that other people who may not be on the call might be
interested. Are these topical enough for this group?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. Does everybody raise your hand if they think that this is topical?
Topical enough? Okay. All right. Yes. Then I'm happy to do it.
All right. No, absolutely. I think the more opportunities, the better. I'm working on something around ag, but you and I can talk about it offline. It'll be really interesting. And as we build out the ag stuff, I know Dee and I talked about it briefly in Chad as well. So I feel like Kelly's in a great place to talk about it, and Kristen for sure. So we'll be talking about my personal ag project. So we're a couple
I'll
minutes.
just quickly say, Amy, we have a local fund. It's been around for a while now. It's called PV Grows. So I'm happy to put you in touch with Rebecca Buzanski and how they've deployed over $1 million at this point for food and ag. And it's run through our CDFI. So it's a pretty good model. They had some deal flow issues at the front, but now things are moving. And I just bought flowers from a beautiful recipient of that fund last week at the farmer's market, and her dahlias are popping.
That's great. See, all these benefits that come from being an ecosystem builder. You've got dahlias and all kinds of things. I want to make sure that everybody gets some time back, but is there anything else that you'd like to share? Otherwise, I will invite you to contact each other on Slack if you have something that you want to publish out to the Facebook community. Those are probably more people generally interested in ecosystem building, but not as focused on ESHIP goals and solving for those. I think people that are on these calls are your primary audience for that. People in the Slack channel are definitely like elbows deep in the work and would like to know that there are other people like you that are working and not feeling so alone. So we'll talk to other people. Hassan and Katie and I and Beth will talk to other people. If you have an idea or a suggestion to for content for a speaker in the upcoming calls, please do let us know. We're very open to that. And if you email at eshipgoals@gmail, then I will share with the team that's facilitating these and curating these calls. So anything else? No? Have a fabulous week. Thank you so much for your energy and your efforts. And you are exactly what makes this stuff worth doing. So we appreciate that. Chad, have a great beginning of your morning. And everybody have a fantastic week. Take care.
Yeah.